Good. Okay. Good. All right. Finally, we're getting started. Okay. Since we're starting late, I'll just keep you later. No, I'm just kidding. I won't do that. Maybe. Okay. This is not the current syllabus. Okay. Like I said, I don't have that done because it was yesterday afternoon before I found out I was teaching the class again. So, and it probably would have been done anyway. But this is pretty much it, except this is not spring. This is summer 2017. It's not dealing with a mini term, so that's going to come off. But it is Math 125, Calculus 1, 4-credit hour course. Probably I should use a different key list. Okay. And, all right, 4-credit hour course. Let me make sure my, sound is still good. The class meeting times, wrong here, Monday, Wednesday, 8 to 11:40. 10:40. Okay, 10:40. Okay, we'll keep stop at 10:40. That is right. Yeah, 8 to 10:40. Okay. 8 to 10:40 because it's a summer 10-week term. This was a 16-week term. That's why the classes were shorter. So it's Monday, Wednesday, 8 to 10:40. National Campus Building A, room A255. Well, that's right. This is pretty much correct, too. My name is still Charles Fowler. My email is cfowler@lawsonstate.edu. And by the way, for those who are new here, just about anyone who's an employee of the college, not everybody, most employees of the college, their email address is first initial, C as in Charles, Fowler, last name, no caps, no spaces, @lawsonstate.edu. Really simple. There are a few, as you might imagine, we have more than one S. Williams, okay? Sharon Williams, Selena Williams, we have several Williams. So the first one got S. Williams, the next one used the middle initial, S.D. Williams or something like that. So you can't always count on this. Sometimes you'll have two initials before the last name. And there's a couple of other instructors who just chose to have different ones, like Mr. King, who teaches speech in English. He chose to do Calvin King rather than K. King. So there are a few exceptions, but most of us are first initial, last name at lawsonstate.edu. Now here's my phone number, 929-3449. I'm going to take this off. Well, I'll leave it at home for a week. Here at Lawson, because this is an old building, and on the Birmingham campus are pretty much old buildings too, not very energy efficient buildings, and they especially take a lot to cool, okay? So what we've started doing in the summertime is going to 4-day work weeks, okay? No Fridays, no Saturdays. Now during fall and spring we have Friday classes, Friday evening classes, we have Saturday day, all-day classes, and we've even experimented with a few Sunday classes, but they don't usually meet. But fall, spring, they're a little bit more moderate temperature-wise. Summer is dreadfully hot, so rather than heating the building for just a few Friday classes and almost no Saturday classes, because summer enrollment's down anyway, always, not that many people come, we stuck to a 4-day work week. However, that only goes into play June and July, okay? So for the rest of May, which is only, 1 or 2 Fridays, I don't remember, I will be on the Birmingham campus, and this is my 4 digits at 929-6409. That's why it says out there for Friday, okay? And my office on this campus is A265. Now let me show you where that is, because the numbering in this building is rather strange. We're right here in the corner classroom. You go out into the hall, take a left, go down that half flight of stairs that some of you came up, and go all the way to the end before you get to the stairwell. Between the stairwell and the mechanical room on the left, that's my office right there, is 265. So you're on the same hall I met you this morning. I was on my way to the office, but didn't get there for another 5 or 10 minutes. Okay. So that's my office here. Now on the Birmingham campus, I don't know, some of you familiar with the Birmingham campus? Okay, the B building, the academic building, you know where Dr. Pruitt's office is? I'm in the copy room in his office suite, So that's where I am on the 1 or 2 Fridays we'll have in May, and the Friday or so we'll have in August, okay? But I'm not going to be there much, okay? But that's B122. If you're not looking for me on Friday, if you are, that's where I am. If you're not looking for me, don't sweat on Friday if you don't know how to get there. Okay, the office hours, these are wrong, okay? These are the ones for last spring. Let me tell you my office hours now as best I figure. And I think my schedule is pretty much set now, okay? I didn't print that out. I have this class goes 8 to 10:40. I have a 20-minute break. So from 10:40, right before class, I'm usually here, and right after class, from 10:40 until 11, you can catch me then. 20 minutes, that's all, folks, okay? Then at 11 o'clock, I have a Cal 2 class. It goes from 11 until 1:40, okay? I believe that's right. Make sure I'm saying it right. Yeah, 11 to 1:40. And then I have another big 20-minute break, okay? And then at 2 o'clock, I have a physics class, and it has a lab with it, and the class and lab stacked together go until 5:30, okay? And then immediately after that class is over with, I have another physics class that starts at 5:30 and goes until class and then lab, and the lab is through at 9 o'clock. So on Mondays and Wednesdays, the days you meet, my only office hours are about 15 minutes before class, 20 minutes after class, and 20 minutes between 1:40 and 2 o'clock. That's all, folks. Okay, that's the only time. And I'm not even sure I'll be in the office. I may just stay up. Well, no. I'll probably go down and try to eat about half of my lunch at 10:40 and the other half at 1:40, okay? And try to cram down all I can in those 40 minutes, okay? Because I don't have any other time that I can even eat. But you can see me during those times. I don't mind talking with my mouth full, so come see me, and we'll do that. I'll forego. I have plenty of it. So, okay. Now, Tuesdays and Thursdays are a lot better, okay? Just that all my Monday, Wednesday classes made, and the Tuesday, Thursdays didn't. Well, not all of them. I've got an 8 o'clock class that goes 8 to 9:50. So from 10 o'clock until 12 o'clock, office hours then, 10 to 12. I've got a 12 o'clock physical science class that goes until, I don't have it here, but yeah, 12 to 3:30, okay? It's got class and then lab, so it'll be 12 to 3:30. So from 3:30 until I leave, and I haven't figured out what time I'm leaving, because I'm here 14 hours and a half on Mondays and Wednesdays. That's not going to leave me a lot of hours for Tuesday, Thursdays, but I will be here for a while after that. When I get my schedule worked out, then I'll let you know what my leave times are on Tuesday and Thursday. What I'll probably do is stay a little bit longer on Tuesday and leave a little bit earlier on Thursday. Start my weekend, okay. But most of the time I'm here past the end time anyway. So these office hours are not correct, but I just told you what they are. Fridays, for these 1 or 2 Fridays we have in May, and if we have any Fridays in August, I'll be there basically from 7:45 to 11:45, not 1, okay? Now, the course description. This is something that I did not come up with. No one here at the college came up with it. This was developed by a committee of 2-year schools and 4-year colleges and universities here in the state of Alabama. And they said, if we offer this, if we do this, then they'll give you credit for it. So this is the first of 3 courses. Actually, I'm not supposed to change anything in this, and maybe they've got it corrected now, but when I first did this, they had it T courses. They left off the HR. I changed that. I said, I'm not going to be that stupid. Okay, so the first of 3 courses in the basic calculus sequence, taken primarily by students in science, engineering, and mathematics. I guess y'all are fitting those categories somewhere there, right? Okay. Topics include the limit of a function. And by the way, that's chapter 2. Have any of you got your text yet? Okay.
You do, okay. That's chapter 2. By the way, I'll go on and hit it now. Chapter 1 is pre-calculus review. And since I hope all of you have already had pre-calculus or you scored out of pre-calculus, it means you know it already, I'm not planning to do that. But if any of you want to take a look at that, chapter 1, if there's anything in there that's foreign to you, or you say, ooh, I remember having that, but I don't remember how to do it, you can ask me. I mean, I'll be glad to review any of that, but I'm not going to take class time to teach through chapter 1. I'll answer any questions you have on it during class time, and then we'll move on. So, the limits of the function, yeah, there it is. That's chapter 2. Derivative of algebraic, trigonometric, exponential, and logarithmic functions. That's chapter 3. Differentiation. Okay? And the definite integral, and its basic applications to area problems. That's chapter 5. Now, you say we skipped 4. No, we haven't. We're coming back to it. And in 5, we are going down through, I usually try to get to about 5.6. Okay? Beginning in 5.7, they hit substitution method and stuff, and that, to me, is techniques of integration, which is where Cal 2 begins. So usually substitution, I'll wait and hold that. A lot of times we don't, especially summer, we don't even get that far. So, you know, that's not usually a problem. Okay. So that's chapter 5. Applications of the derivative are covered in detail. That's chapter 4. Applications of derivative. Okay? Including approximations of error, including using differentials, maximum and minimum problems, curve sketching using calculus. All that's in chapter 4. Okay? So there's the course description. That's what we're going to cover in your book when you get your book. Now, do any of you, since this is Cal 1, do any of you already have a calculus book? Not this one. We're going to talk about the text later. Okay, like you might be repeating the course, or your brother had the course, or something like that. Or sister, yeah, sorry. Okay, but if you have a book already, don't buy a new book. I'll show you what chapters correlate. All these books are just about, I mean, they even sometimes name the chapters and number them almost exactly the same. So if you already have a text that's not this one, bring it to me and I'll show you what chapters are going to be on that. Okay? But if you haven't got one yet, get this one. Now you can get an e-text, e-book, you can get rent a book, especially if you're going to a different school and you might have a different book at that school. Then if you're going back and, let's say, taking Cal 2 in the fall, you might want to rent this one, you know, so you don't have to buy it and then buy another book if they want you to have the same, you know. So, okay, we'll get there. Okay, prerequisites. As a minimum prerequisite, other than blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. Or if you're a Lawson student, if you take, or any one in the 2-year system, Math 113 or 115, either one of those. This is pre-calculus trig, that's pre-calculus algebra and trig combined. Okay. Co-requisites, there aren't any. Now we'll get to the textbook, which we've already hit. At least some talk about it. Oh, goodness, why'd you do that? Goodness gracious. This thing is so aggravating. Okay, stop there. The textbook is Calculus, Early Transcendentals, okay? It's written by Rogowski and Adams, John Rogowski, Colin Adams. It's the 3rd edition. Freeman is the publisher. And it was copyright date 2015, which for those Lawson students, if you're going to be here a while, well, this is the book you use all through, but you might be able to sell it back, okay? They update editions about every 3 or 4 years, and it's not that they need to, hardly anything changes, but you see the publisher only makes money when they sell new books. They don't make any money on used books. Used book buyer, dealers deal with that. So they do new editions whether they need to or not. Sorry, I shouldn't be saying that either, should I? All right, but also bring with you a graphing calculator if you have it. If you don't have it, you can live without Okay? But if you have one, be sure you bring those. It makes things a little bit easier. Paper, graph paper, pencils. Now, if you prefer using ink, fine with me. I'll make a little confessional time here. When I do math, especially calculus, I tend to make errors. You're going to find that out soon enough. So I prefer doing math in pencils, so I don't have to have blobs on the page. I can erase it and it won't be as bad a blob. But that's up to you. Someone else wrote the syllabus, so I left it there. Here's a paragraph that we're not allowed to change, and I wish we could because it's out of date. But they say, no, you cannot touch this. Blackboard. All Austin State Community College students must be trained in Blackboard. Now, I know a lot of you are not from Austin. Are you familiar with Blackboard? Okay, you're not. Okay. And several of you are familiar with Blackboard, right? I'll help as much as I can, but these other folks, they can see the student side. All I can see is the instructor side of Blackboard, and I can show you on that, and it's pretty similar. But the other students can show you exactly what you need to do. You have access now to it because you're enrolled in the class. So you go to Blackboard, and by the way, I bet you at the front desk they have some information, short, quick guides to how to use Blackboard and that kind of stuff. I know on our webpage it's there. So go to our webpage, lawsonstate.edu, and you all know how to navigate web pages. Look around for it till you find it. How to use Blackboard. You Google or whatever. Search or whatever. Okay. So, if you have questions, I'll help as much as I can. Now, what you do need is your Blackboard login and password. You're a Lawson student, right? Isn't your login your first initial, last name with 4 digits, right? Is that the last 4 digits of your student ID? Okay. So you have a Lawson ID now, right? Yeah, you do. It's what?
It's not letting me log into the email. Like, it's saying that the account is not recognized by Google.
Okay.
I'm a transient student.
Okay. So let me get, okay. Again, first initial, last name, last 4 digits of your ID number, not your social, and not any other school ID, your Lawson ID. At students. No, I'm talking about, she's talking about email.
Oh, yeah.
At students.lawsonstate.edu. Is that what you use?
Yes, but you can access Blackboard with that same.
No, not quite the same. It's almost the same. You don't have that at in there, at students. It's just first initial, last name with those 4 digits. That is your login. It's the same as your login for email before the at students. Okay, so the first part, that's the same, but not the whole thing. Okay, then your password is that your date, your birthday, and how is that, month, day, year? Okay, 2-digit month, 2-digit day, 2-digit year, not 4-digit year, 2-digit year. So that's your password for Blackboard. Okay. Different for faculty, that's why I say get with the student, they know, okay. And if you still can't do it, see me after class. We got 20 minutes before my next class. I'll take you down to Ms. Jamie's class. She is the very best IT person in the world. She knows how to speak to people. She's pleasant. She doesn't use computerese. She's great, and she knows it all. I mean, she's so quick with it. It's amazing. Amazing person. Okay, so she'll get you lined up, and she can get it changed just like that. She'll go, and it's done. You know, I don't know how she does it. Okay, so anyone else who needs help with Blackboard, yeah, okay. We'll have you tried? And it didn't work. Okay, it may be the system, they just don't have all the updates in it yet, because the transient students typically are pretty late enrolling, and so you get the numbers and they have to do all the stuff with admissions and stuff, and it has several administrative hoops to go through, and it takes them a while to get everything caught up. So it'll be there one of these days soon. I don't have Blackboard set up either, so you're not missing anything. So you can feel good about it. Okay. But here's what it says. Also, State Community College students must be trained in Blackboard and use Blackboard daily to gain access to vital course information, such as the syllabus, and you will read the syllabus every day, won't you? Saturdays and Sundays included, right? Of course you will. Okay, I'm sorry. Being facetious again. Okay. It's a little bit of a stretch. Now, some instructors use Blackboard as a teaching tool. I don't, okay? I use it as a tool, just for what I want it for, okay? Yeah, the syllabus will be there. It's not there yet because I don't have it updated yet. As soon as I get it updated, I'll put it on Blackboard. I'll let you know. Handouts. Now, most of the time, if I have a handout, I'm going to hand it out to you, okay? So I'm not usually going to put handouts on Blackboard. But other instructors might, so get to know it if you're taking other courses. PowerPoint shows. Yes. Now, they're not there yet, but they will be. That CD or DVD or whatever it was I just put in here, you saw me go back and get, it was in this little thing, it has the PowerPoints on it. Now, the trouble is the PowerPoints are on from the second edition because the PowerPoints for the third edition are somewhere out there in ether space, and we just started this edition, and I haven't figured out I haven't sat down and tried to figure out how to access them. If I do that this summer, they will be. Like I said, there's hardly any change, especially in Cal 1. I can't think of any changes, but if I run into any, I'll let you know. So anyway, I will take that CD or DVD, whichever it is, down and copy the PowerPoints from that to Blackboard. They're not there yet, but I'll get them there as soon as I can. Okay? But that's not all. I'll use PowerPoint in the teaching. And let me tell you this, the PowerPoint for this text is pathetic, okay? But I will use it. So when I'm teaching, I'm recording it on Screencast-O-Matic and loading it to YouTube so you can either read the PowerPoint that I'll put on Blackboard under, and by the way, for those who are not familiar with it, when you go to Blackboard, when you finally get into it, the home page will have a block over here with several tabs in it. And something like the second or third tab down here is one that's called Content, right? Okay, and that content, that's where I'll put the syllabus. That's where I'll put the research paper instructions. There, we're going to get to that in a minute. I'll put my locator card. I don't have that done, but I'll show you a sample, okay? I'll put the PowerPoints in there, and I'll also put links to other websites that other students have told me over time or that I found over time that might be useful for the course, like Khan Academy or, I can't think of the name of some of the other ones, math something. There's a bunch of math bits or something like that. If I found any that look like they might be good, I'll put links to those out there. And I also put the link to YouTube that'll take you to this course, okay? To the playlist for this course. I don't have that done yet, but I will get it done. Hopefully, I'm planning to do a lot on Friday. I can't do anything today. I do have some office hours tomorrow. I'll try to get some of this done tomorrow, and Friday I'll try to wrap those up. And then I guess y'all know the good news, bad news situation, don't you? The good news is that Monday is Memorial Day, and the school is closed. But the bad news is that means we won't have a class that day. So get over it. Okay. So I have Tuesday of next week too, and maybe by Wednesday I'll have this stuff done. Hopefully, but we'll see. I'm going to take my computer home for the weekend, but we're going out of town, and we have DSL where we're going, but it's pretty slow. And we got company there too, so I don't know if I'm going to have any time to work on it over the weekend. If I do, I'll try to get some of it done. Okay. So PowerPoint shows 2 places: static under content, dynamic under the YouTube. Okay, and that's also in Blackboard. You'll access that in Blackboard. Okay, activities. Sometimes the school posts activities. We don't have that many in the summertime. Can't think of any I'm going to post. So that. Assignments, they're kind of there. Number 1, the research paper assignment, as soon as I get a few changes made there, I'll put that out there, so that's going to be there. And then every time we come to the end of a section in the book, I will make the assignments for homework. So I'm not going to type it out in Blackboard, but it'll be on Blackboard through the YouTube video, okay? So if you miss a class, go back and go through the video and find out what how far we got, what we did, that kind of stuff, and you'll hear the assignments there.
So they are there, but they're not there as directly as you might think. The research paper assignment will be there, okay? Announcements, sometimes the school makes announcements. Most of the time I don't have any, but it has happened sometime that something has come up that I have to put an announcement out there, like, you know, had a doctor's appointment changed and now I've got to go. I don't think that's going to happen, but, you know, something like that. I hope there won't be anything that I'm going to have to cancel class or something. Grades. I will be putting grades out there as soon as I get something in. That Monday or Wednesday, I'm not going to have time to grade it. I'll promise you that, okay? I'm in class all day. But Tuesday and Thursday, hopefully I'll have time to get the grades done. And when I get it graded, I'll put it on Blackboard. Now, that works pretty well up until around July, after the 4th of July. Because at that time, we start registering students for fall term. And the last time I checked, I was listed as the advisor for about 450 students. Now, not all of them come see me, but a lot do, and some people that I'm not listed advisor also come see me. So I will slow down grades then. And usually then it's over the weekend before I get the grades in. So I'll try to get them in as soon as I can, but it won't always be the next day. I do not like this next sentence. Failure to use whiteboards could severely damage your ability to pass the course. That's such a negative sentence. If I were writing this, and they don't let me change it, I'd say the proper use of Blackboard could greatly enhance your ability to do well in the course. It's much more positive and I think closer to reality. This next sentence is really out of date. See the schedule book. We haven't had a schedule book for years now, okay? But they haven't changed this. But they won't let us change that, okay? So forget that. I do not like the last sentence. Students should always check Blackboard announcement page prior to coming to class. Why would they write that in there? What is the missing clause at the end? Comma what? Why would you want to check Blackboard announcement page prior to coming to class? In case the instructor has canceled class. To me, that's the only reason that should be in there. And let me tell you, I will try my very best not to cancel a class, ever, okay? And if I know something's coming up, I'm going to give you that plenty in advance. And if something major happens with a wreck on the expressway, I'm not going to have time to get it on Blackboard, you know? If I come down with a serious case of the flu, I'm probably not going to say, honey, go get my computer so I can put it on Blackboard. You know, probably I'm going to be just, yeah. So, I don't like that. I'm not going to arbitrarily cancel class, okay? I'm going to be here, and I look forward to seeing you here. Let's do the core student learning outcomes. Students will use limits to define rates of change numerically, graphically, and algebraically. That's pretty much chapter 2, okay? I've already mentioned that. Students will take the derivative of functions, including product and quotient rules, higher derivatives, chain rule, implicit differentiation. That's pretty much chapter 3. Students will apply the derivative to linear approximation, extreme values, the shape of a graph, L'Hopital's rule, and Newton's method. That's chapter 4, okay? Okay? Students will approximate and compute area using definite integral, and we use the fundamental theorem of calculus. That's the first part of chapter 5, 5.1 through something around 5.6. I don't remember, something like that. And students will use the computer and graphing calculator to illustrate knowledge of concepts such as limit, continuity, and extreme values of functions. Someone else put that one in. I haven't done anything with it. That's not something that you're required to do, but if you have one, I highly recommend you do it, so you're going to use that as a great tool for that. But it's not necessary for the way. The student will research and write on the topic of calculus. I'll get into that a little bit later. Don't get panicking now. It's not going to be as bad as it sounds, I hope. Okay. So let's look at the core competencies, which are, okay, they follow almost exactly there. Chapter 2, limits. At the end of chapter 2, tests. Now, another time out here. I need to get your input. Okay? I've been doing too much talking. Y'all need to get to talking. Do you prefer to have in-class test or take-home test? Does it matter to you?
Take-home.
Really? Wow, what an unusual class. Okay, that's fine with me. I like it. Okay? So we'll probably do take-home tests. Okay? Yeah. There is ulterior motive here, too. I can't come up with very many calculus classes you can
finish in an hour anyway, so it's a lot better to take them home. But they're not that bad either. Okay. So you will have a test at the end of chapter 2. We'll do chapter 3, differentiation. The assessment will be a test there. Chapter 4, application of the derivative. Test after that. Chapter 5, the integral, at least the first few sections, or like 1 through 6 or something like that. There, and the writing competency will be your research paper, and the overall competency will be the final examination. Now, time out again. I used to put here comprehensive final examination, but I found that quite often, and say already I've mentioned, we're losing half of a week out of 10 weeks for summer, half of a week Monday, because there's no classes on Monday. So automatically we're minus 1 class. So quite often, and you see I'm not moving very fast here, I don't have time for a comprehensive exam. So your overall competency may be that last chapter test. Because guess what? This chapter test on the integral, guess what integration is? Undoing the derivative. So everything you learn up here, and integrals use limits too. You do anti-differentiation. So basically this last test is somewhat comprehensive, but I'm not going to go back. If we finish everything with time to spare, yeah, we'll have a comprehensive final exam at the end. The odds of that happening pretty slim, okay? So that's why I just put final exam, not comprehensive final exam. I'm hedging my bets is what you call that. Okay, I wouldn't say that. No. So let's look at evaluation and assessment. Obviously, this is not set up nicely because that should not be at the bottom of the page. But here's the grading policy. Okay, it's pretty simple. I hope you'll find it fairly simple. The research paper is required for the course. It will count as a test grade, and that one cannot be dropped. Okay? Then we'll have a test on Chapter 2, a test on Chapter 3, a test on Chapter 4, and the test on Chapter 5 may or may not count as the final. Probably will count as the final. So the chapter test will be given after each chapter. The lowest chapter test grade may be dropped. 2, 3, or 4. The lowest one of those, if it helps your average, I'll drop that lowest test grade. If it doesn't help your average, then I won't drop it. For instance, what if you don't turn in the paper and you get a 0 there? You're going to need every test score you can to bring that 0 up. Don't do that, Turn in your paper so you'll be able to drop it. The final exam, whether it's a comprehensive final or just the last chapter test, cannot be dropped. So don't come to me at the end of the class. I hear it every term, just about. Oh, I have all A's on my test. Do I have to take the final? Yes, you do. It can't be dropped, okay? So everybody does that last test, whether it's the last chapter test or the final. Each assessment will be rated on a 100-point scale. And then when we do the averages, you'll see in Blackboard the grades going down there. If you're in the 90s A, 80s B, 70s C, 60s D, don't go there. 50s signs and below, else don't go there, okay? Stay up here, folks, okay? Students are expected to attend all classes for which they're registered. Students who are unable to attend class regularly, regardless of the reason, but this is an excused absence. I don't care if it's excused or not. If you're here, you're getting material. If you're not here, you're not getting material. Now, I record everything. You can go back and pick it up on YouTube. That's better than nothing. And you can do homework problems. That's better than nothing. But try to be here because if you can't be here and regularly and miss the material, you're more than likely going to not do as well on the exams and stuff. So therefore, you're going to hurt your ability to do well in the class. You might want to consider withdrawing then rather than getting a bad grade. You don't want an E or an F, okay? Because for Lawson students, a D you have to repeat. It's a passing grade, but they won't accept it for the next course. You have to have a C or better. And if you're a transit student, D's don't transfer back, okay? So try to keep it up. So rather than doing that. Now, if you're on financial aid, you need to check with them too, because withdrawal can affect your eligibility for federal financial aid. But let me say this, even about that. I don't know if any of you are on it, but I always tell folks, because most fall and spring, lots of our students are on it. Federal financial aid will typically pay for you to retake a class once. So let's say you withdrew, you made a D, you made an F the first time you took it, they will pay for you to take it the second time. But if you made a D the first time, you withdrew the second time, they will not pay for you to take it the third time. So that's how it does affect. But guess what, folks? A D hurts your grade point average. Hopefully it hurts it, that you have a higher than a 1.0 grade point average. It probably is going to be hurt. A D, F definitely hurts it. So it's better to withdraw than get a D or an F, whether it's going to affect your financial aid or not. You're still going to have to take the class over if you're on financial aid, but why get a bad grade and have to take it over? You know, if you can't make a C or better, then maybe it's better to not withdraw. But okay. Thus, before withdrawing, check with your financial aid office if you're on financial aid. Make up work. Now, I assign homework basically just about every day. Okay. The homework is for your benefit, so you can practice doing the things we've done in class to help you do better on the test when it comes along. Okay. If you have trouble getting the answer in the back, here, let me tell you this about homework. I only assign odd number exercises. Why? Because those answers are in the back of the book. So therefore, when you're doing your homework, if you can't get the answers in the back, don't get super frustrated about it, okay? You can wait and come and see me either during office hours or in class the next time, because I try to start every class with, are there any questions? And that's a great time to ask me anything you've had problems with homework. So don't get super frustrated. So if you can't get it, use YouTube. Go back to YouTube, either my YouTube or those other sites I have out there. See if you can work through the problems using the answer in the back of the book. See if you can figure out how to get it. But if you can't, don't get super frustrated with it. You know, come back and do it. So I don't take up the homework. Again, it's for your benefit. But I will use the homework. If you are having problems, bring it to me and I'll show you, here's where you made your error. You have to do this before you do that, you know, something like that. So the homework is important, but I don't grade you, but I try to help you find where you're messing up. So bring your homework when you have questions. Don't just come in, I can't do number 15. Come and see me and show me where you did it, and I'll show you, you know, we'll work through it together, okay? Now, if it's in class, I'll work through it, you know, for everybody, okay? So, now, the test. Since you elected to do take-home tests, try to have those back within a week, okay? Now, I will give you more time if you need it, but try to have them back within a week. And there's two reasons for that I give you a week. Number one, you always have another class day before it's due to ask questions. Now, I'm not going to work a test question in class, okay? That's why it's a test question. You know, you need to work that. But I'll do any clarification of the question. What are you meaning here? I'll try to do that. Or, I don't know how to do this. Well, then find a homework exercise similar to that one in the book. I'll work anything in the book unless it's identically the same as the test question. So that's why I give you a week. So you always have one class day in between so you can ask questions. Okay? The second reason I give you that is some people work, and maybe the weekend is the only time you can really have a concentrated time to work on the test, and that always gives you a weekend before it's due. Okay? If I give you a week, there's always a weekend in between that. Okay. So, I don't see why makeup work with take-home tests really makes a lot of difference, but try to have it done within a week. But if you need more time, usually you can take it. But please don't do this. Please don't fail to turn in the first test and I'm already giving out the second test. Okay? Because guess what? I can't return anyone's papers until I get all of them in. And if you are way, way, way late turning yours in, you're keeping everybody else from having the benefit of seeing what they did wrong on the first one. Now, that's not quite true. You can come see me anytime. I can go through what you did wrong. I just can't return it to you so you can take it home and mull over it. Okay? So please try to get them in within a week. if possible. You can have extra time if you need it, but please don't hold up everybody else because you're being lazy. But remember, the research paper in the final cannot be done. Lateness all class. This is almost a joke, you think. No, it's not really. I will always try to be here right at 8 o'clock. I'm usually here well before 8. I'll try to have everything set up by 8. But as I said before, I am the department chair of math, and I'm one of the few department chairs on this campus. Most of them are over on the Birmingham campus. So anytime there's a problem, people come see me. In fact, quite often by this time I've already had someone knocking at the door. It's been a good term, I guess, because no one's knocking, interrupting class the first day or two of class. So I'll try to be there. Another thing that, backing up to why I was late this morning, we had a trig class that they wanted to cancel, but 6 out of 7 students were paid, and the administration was going back and forth on whether to cancel it or not. They didn't want to lose 6 paid students, but they didn't want to run a small class, so I had to deal with that this morning too, with the instructor who was covering that class this morning. So that's the other reason I was late getting here. And all 6 of those students came, so I think I made the decision to go run it. I'll get chewed out later, maybe. Okay, but sometimes that kind of stuff happens, and I am forced to be late, but I try not to make it a habit. I try for it not to happen at all. Okay. I'll try to get through this a lot quicker. Okay. Yeah. Discrimination and harassment. Let me just shorten this a little bit. We don't want it to happen. If we see it happening, we're going to deal with it. We want everybody to feel safe, comfortable, have an educational environment free of harassment, discrimination, or anything else. And frankly, I said I've been here close to 20 years. I think I'm right at the end of my 19th or 20th year right now. I don't remember which. And anyway, I've seen very little, if anything, that would really count as harassment and discrimination. The closest thing I can think of right now is we had a young kid right out of high school. No offense if any of you are right out of high school, but he was in the automotive program. They're good students there quite often, but he was just there because his daddy made him come to college. That thing he picked to do, and he really wasn't interested in it. And one day at lunch, he just decided to start walking over people's cars in the parking lot. Now, he wasn't discriminating anyone, he was just doing it indiscriminately. When he was found doing that, they yanked him. He was in the dean's office within a few minutes, and he was off campus with a few minutes after that, and we never seen him again. No, I mean, typically we try to deal with it quickly, fairly, but we don't want it happening here. Okay, so here's what I ask of you. If you see or even sense that there might be some bullying or other types of, some type of harassment going on, please let us know. We will not rat anybody or anything else, but we will look into it. If we find this happening, well, thank you very much, not publicly, but private, and deal with it, and deal with it quickly. We want to nip it in the proverbial bud if it's happening. So far on this campus, I have felt really good. I don't know, are you familiar with this campus? You've been here before, or are you mostly Birmingham? Birmingham. I don't know. I just found that I like working here. I don't get on Birmingham much, but I think it's really safe too. I've never seen any examples there either. Have you? Okay, so I think both campuses are really good. I can speak for this one. So, but let us know if you sense anything. We want to know about it. It's not tolerated. It's not tolerated. It says it over and over here. Okay? Never tolerated. Okay. Now, American with Disability Act. I don't know if you noticed when I was calling roll. You probably did. You probably are definitely noticing now, why is he talking so loud? I'm hard of hearing, okay? I'm old and hard of hearing. And so I relate if you have a disability, okay? So please, if you have any type of disability, please let someone know. And I'm not really the best one to let know, but you can let me know. I'll take you right down to see Dr. Herndon. She's a specialist on this. She's a counselor here. And so if you have any kind, get that information to
Office of Disability Services, here's the number on this campus. Here, Dr. Renee Herndon on this campus, and Mrs. Janine McCoy Jones on the Birmingham campus. Okay? And they are great people. They'll get you to get all the documentation you need. They'll get the paperwork together, and they will let us, the instructors, know what we need to do. Frankly, I want you to learn. That's why I'm here. So whatever it takes to help you learn, I want to do it. So let us know. But I can't assume anything. Otherwise, I'm discriminating against you. So please go through the process. Okay? And there's where you can go to find out more. The Lawson State webpage, go to Student Services blue tab, and then Disability Services, ADA link, and meet and contact ADA counselor link. So they got it all there for you. They just added these to the syllabi this year. So this is something new here. This again is the offices where they are. I'll show it to you if you need information how to get there. Okay? Now, the course calendar is obviously not right because this is last spring, not this summer. But you'll find this on the academic calendar on our website. So you'll see this. I'll get this updated, everything there. Obviously, this won't be, but a lot of these things will be right. I'll just put the dates that make it right. Obviously, it's not Martin Luther King Day, but it's Memorial Day this time. So we'll have a lot of those. So it won't be a summer break, that will be taken out. No honors and awards day, but everything else I'll try to get on there based on the academic calendar. Okay. Now, once I get everything corrected and all this updated, then I'll let you know. It'll be on Blackboard. And then if you will either print this page, and you can type your name, type the date, and email it to me, just this page, or you can print it off and sign your name or print your name or whatever and give it to me to let me know that you've read the syllabus and that you've had all your questions answered. Do you have any questions now besides the corrections I'll be making? Yes?
In terms of the process of getting the summer transcript
Okay.
back to your institution, do I need to go to the office beforehand, drop in, and tell them that I want it sent back to my institution?
You mean right now?
Like, is there a date that I can't do it by? Like, do I have to do it by a certain date?
Okay. I think it's pretty quick, but the people to ask, are you familiar with the building health? Okay. All right. Sort of point out to you where you're going. Just like we said, leave this room here, go down the half flight of stairs, and you see right here it says corridor. That corridor goes to, the reason there's nothing here, this is all second floor. You go through the corridor, you don't go up or down any steps, and you're on the first floor. That's why there's nothing here. When you get into this hallway here, you go up and you see student records. That sign above the door, go in there and ask them that question. I think it's right at the end of the term. I don't. They may have a deadline, but it's not going to be before drop ad. It's going to be near the end of the term. But check with them sometime when you can. Now, the trouble is they're very seldom here before 8, so you have to do it after class. Do you have any other class here? So right after class. In fact, today I'll walk you down there if you want me to. Just stay with me. I'll do that. Okay. Good question. Any others? All right. So that covers all we got on the syllabus. So I think I'll go on and get out of the syllabus here because I don't need that anymore. And let's now go to the research paper. I know you wanted to hear that. Okay. These are just general instructions, and there are a few things that are for last spring specifically. I'll make those changes as I go. You get to choose your topic. Anything within the scope of the course. It can be a person. There's lots of people who contributed to calculus. We'll talk about several of them, okay? You can choose any of them. It could be a theory. You already saw fundamental theorem of calculus, okay? There's lots of others, that are out there that we'll run across. If that's what interests you, choose that. It could be a phenomenon that is described or explained using calculus, okay? For instance, and we'll touch on this just very briefly,
If my understanding's right, one of the reasons Isaac Newton developed calculus, there I just gave you a name, is that he was trying to explain Kepler's laws of planetary motion. So there was a phenomenon that he couldn't use the math that was available at that time to explain. He had to come up with a new math, and that's where he came up with calculus. Okay? And application. If you run across anything that, especially something that you're interested in, that is explained or described by calculus, you can do an application. I love application papers. You know, they really mean that you have found something and you are applying calculus to that. Okay. Or any other such topic about which you have an interest. Now, this is a dumb example, but I'll give it to you because it's an application that just made my day when he did it. I had a guy who sat right there in a trig class one time. Okay. He was actually a Jeff State student, but he lived in McCullough or somewhere here. And rather than driving back and forth, he had trouble with math at Jeff State, so he decided to try it here. And I had him for a couple of courses, and the last one was trig. He was going to be a forester, transfer to Auburn, okay, and major in forestry. And he wrote his paper on how to use trigonometry and estimating board feet of timber in the field. Perfect example, okay, an application of what he was learning here and how you use it in his area. It doesn't have to be your area, it may be just something you have an interest in. Any other such topic about which you have an interest. Now, I do make this other possibility here. Or it can be an internet application or demonstration which you find useful. I mentioned a few sites. If you find a site out there somewhere that you say, man, this is good, you know, why didn't he say that? Why didn't the book present it this way? This is really making it make sense to me. You can write a paper on that site, you know. What you found confusing or foggy or not understanding well the way the book, or I'm not going to be offended, presented it, but you found this site and named how it did it better. Give maybe some examples. What you wish it had gone even further, you can develop. All you need is 1 to 2 pages. If you can come up with a paper on that, you can write on that. And all you need to do then is give me the website, so I make sure it is a legitimate one, and most of them will be, and then I'll add it to the links that everybody can see it. Okay, so that can be your paper right there, or it can be a demonstration. I had in a physics class one time, I had somebody found, I think it was on, oh boy, something that's on TV somewhere, maybe myths or something like that, some type of thing there. They found a demonstration of a Van de Graaff generator. And this team of people actually built a Van de Graaff generator. And that was, they wrote their paper on that, I found that really interesting. I hadn't seen that before. So if you can find a demonstration or other thing out there, you say, wow, this makes so much sense, you can write on just an internet source, okay? Now, what I'd like you to do, either today or next week, is write your name on a piece of paper. That's pretty easy, right? Okay, and the topic that you want to look into. Now, if you change topics later, that's fine. I mean, I just want you to start thinking about it now. We've only got 10 weeks. I don't want you waiting till the end of the term and say, oh, yeah, I got to do a paper. Let's see, what can I do at home? Start thinking about it now. So I want you to write your name on a piece of paper and a topic. Now, since that's the only thing you're going to have on a whole piece of paper, let me give you a few other things that is completely optional whether you give me this or not. And I'll give you the background first. Especially since many of you are transient students, we don't have very much record of you, in our system. We have some, obviously, transient letters and things like this. But periodically, and this doesn't happen frequently, but maybe once every 2 or 3 terms, I'll have an administrator give me a panicky phone call. Do you have this and so is in your class, do you have somebody to get in touch with? The numbers in our systems aren't working. And so that's why I say, if you want to give me your very best phone number, whether you gave it on your application or not, if you want to give it to me, you can. And that way, if someone transcribed and got 2 numbers crossed up and it's not working because you don't have the right number in there or something, you can do that on that piece of paper or not. I'm guessing the very best phone number will be a cell number. I may be wrong on that, but most students, that's what it is. If your cell might run out of battery or you run over by a car, you lost it, left it at home or something, and you want to give me a good backup number, like Mama's landline or something like that, that would be fine too, but you don't have to if you don't want to. Or some of you, as I said before, may work, and if the odds are the time when they're trying to get in touch with you is when you might be at work, then if you want to give me a work number, if you can receive phone calls at work, then you can give me that. I don't need any more than 3. I don't need any of them. You can give me 0 numbers, 1 number, 2 number, or 3 numbers, whatever you want to give me. I don't care whether you do or not, but that way if someone does call, I can go through and say, yeah, I have this number. I'm not going to give it to a student. I'm not going to give it to Joe Blow off the street. It's going to be someone here at the college who has a legitimate reason. And usually it's a pretty important reason. That's why they're calling me to find out. So if you want to write that on a piece of paper, you can. That's not part of this assignment, but you can do that if you want to give me a number. And at the end of the term, those will be shredded. I won't hang on to those or tell them to any. Okay. All right. You'll need to find at least 1, 2 or more or better outside source for your paper. This book, every now and then, has a little thing they call a historical perspective, and it may write up something on somebody. That can't be a source for your paper. That can be an idea for your paper, but you need to go outside the book to get your sources. That's what the whole purpose is, to get you out of the book into the real world, sort of, okay? So, what can these sources be? They can be from books, journals, other books, journals, articles, any other materials, newspaper, magazines, anything you find in the library, or any, here's where I might run into trouble, any legitimate source found on the internet. Now, I tell most of my classes that, sorry I go on too long on this, but during my lifetime, I've lived a long time, 66 years, I think the greatest thing that has been developed or created or invented, whatever you want to call it, during my lifetime has to be the internet, okay? In 1951, I don't think it existed, okay? And this thing has come and is just absolutely amazing what you can do with it. 2 problems with the internet. 1, at least half of the stuff on there is total garbage, okay? And number 2, sometimes we don't know which half, okay? So you have to be careful when you're using internet sources. I know some people don't even allow it. I don't care. If you find something good, if you have any doubt about its legitimacy, show it to me, let me look at it, and I'll say, oh yeah, that's good. Yeah, go with it, you know. Or, hey, I've never heard of this. I don't know. I can't see anything here that shows there's really, really good research on it. So maybe not that. Okay. But if you find a good, legitimate source on the internet, I'll allow you to do that. 1 or more sources, okay? Certainly if you're doing just on the internet application demonstration, that may be your only source. But unless you look at, and here's another thing you can write in that. I looked at 3 other sites, and this is better because, yeah, that can be part of your paper. You can give me those sites too if you want to, but you don't have to. Okay, so that can be part of your paper. The textbook for the class is not an outside source. It can give you ideas, but it can't be one of your sources. Your paper must be at least 1 word process page of text. Double spaced. Now this is single space, but double spaced, 1 page of text. But let me explain what a page of text is. Because I have people who do all sorts of creative things with this. A page of text, now you get to choose whatever format you're going to use. If that format has some sort of header up here, that's fine, I don't care. And then the title, and then somewhere here you may triple space and start typing here. What's a page of text? That's going to go to the bottom of this page with regular standard type margins. Double space is fine. Standard type margins gets to the bottom of that, and then on the second page comes down at least that far. That's a page of text. So that just typing things on the page and widening the margin and getting about 15 words on the page, that's not a page of text, okay? No matter how you format it, I want it to go, okay. Now, all right. Now, 12 picture or point font, however you call that. That means you can't use 26 point and 3 words fill up a page, say I'm through. No, that's not going to work either. The font you use is completely up to you as long as I can read it, okay? I don't read hieroglyphics or Cyrillic or Old English or Latin or Greek or Roman or anything else. So, but any of those good readable fonts, Times New Roman is most of the word processing packages default. This is an Arial, that's fine. Courier, there's tons and tons of good readable fonts. Just make sure I can read it. My eyes aren't great. Okay. Try to keep the paper less than 2 pages. I don't require that, but I don't want it to be a major thing. I mean, I want you to be able to get something you're interested in, write it up, and not take a super inordinate amount of time. So, now if you go too long, if you go more than 2 pages, I don't take off points for it being too long. If it's too short, you do get points taken off for being too short, but not for being too long. But let me also explain how I grade this paper, because I've had some people who think they can replace quality with quantity, and that doesn't really work, okay? Because when you turn in the paper, guess what? It's a 100-point paper. Until I start reading it. I can hear you now. Don't read it, don't read it. No, I'm going to read it, okay? And as I read it, if I find errors, you start losing points, okay? Now, if you write a garbage paper but want to make it 15 pages of garbage, I'm going to find lots of errors for 15 pages. You're going to lose a lot of points. If you write me a good paper, whether it's 1.5 pages, 3 pages, 7 pages, you're not going to lose many points if it's a good paper, right? And I'll enjoy reading it, okay? So, don't try to replace quality with quantity. Make it good quality however long you make it, okay? You may use any standard format for your paper. Now, most English classes teach MLA, Modern Language Association. If that's what you know and that's what you're comfortable with, fine with me. A lot of science courses and fields like APA format, which is American Psychological Association format. They came up with a format, and everybody said, boy, this is a good format. I'm going to use it. I'm not going to create my own. But there's lots of other formats out there. There's a CBE, Council of Biological Editors. I don't know if they still use it. I remember when I was in grad school, that was one we had to use. I'm a member of a couple of professional organizations. Seems like every one of them has a different format. They didn't go with the APA. But you can use any one you want to, but be consistent. That's the key. If you start blocking paragraphs, block all your paragraphs. If you start indenting your paragraphs, indent all your paragraphs. Don't be flipping, flocking back and forth. I've also found students write one paragraph in Arial and the next one will be in Times New Roman. I say, why the change? Or suddenly they start bolding things without any reason, or italicizing. Now, if there's a reason, that's fine. But, be consistent and do. Now, another place I found not a lot of errors, but I see it occasionally. Let's say in this first paragraph, you make a reference to something, one of your sources, okay? And you put a parenthesis here and put the author's last name, comma, date of publication, and that's how your format called for you to do it. But then down here in this paragraph, you make another reference to a different source, but you put open parentheses, title of the article, comma, page number. Okay, now, I realize that within a certain format, there's different things, you cite things differently. But if it's the same type of citation, I know what happened, generally. This first thing that you looked at, you tended to use how they cited, and then this one was using a different format, and you cite using the way that one did. No, you choose your format, and then you do your citations according to the format, not according to your sources format. Okay, so please try to do that. The big thing is consistency. Okay, please be consistent. Now, spelling, grammar, sentence structure, other types of errors will cost you points. So guess what? Just about all the word processing packages have spell check. I think they all have grammar check these days, okay? Unless you're using a real cheap one, I don't know where you get it these days. But use them, okay? And also use good proofreading. And here's what I mean by that. I had a high school English teacher. I remember now how she said it, pretty much. I might be not quite right. She said, when you do a paper, a pretty major paper, she said, get it done early. And she used the phrase, let it rest. Set it aside for, say, a weekend or something like that. And then pick it up several days later and read it. And again, here's what she said, with fresh eyes. Because guess what? Typing, reading, that's not proofreading. Okay? That's just saying. Because what you do when you're doing it, right after you've written it, you know what you want it to say. When you read it, you're going to read it, so it says that. If you let it rest and pick it up with fresh eyes, then you're going to read along and say, what? What? You've done that with emails, I bet, too. When you've gone back and read something you sent to somebody else or a text, you said, I said that? Because that's not what you meant, but that's when you picked it up and looked at it later. That's what it said. Okay. So that's what I mean good proofreading. Content also matters. Okay. I will recognize most of what things you're writing about. I've either read papers about it or I'm familiar with it. I'll give just a couple of dumb examples. I've had so many papers on Horizon Newton. I don't mind, you can do them, but I almost know the date of this paper. I remember one paper had in Florida in 1940 something, rather than 1490, no, whatever. They just had 2 digits reversed. Really sloppy, but I knew it wasn't true. Another one, I remember this one pretty well. I think it's happened more than once. On the front page, they named him and put in parentheses the year of his birth, the year of his death. You see that periodically. And then on the second or third page, they have him dying the year that he, no. That's not being consistent, okay? Please be careful with your things. So, content. I've also had people write, not in this class, or maybe in this class, on Pythagorean theorem, and they tell it to me totally wrong, or they describe it wrong. I mean, I'll recognize things like that. Newton's method, I'll recognize if you get it to me wrong. So your content also matters, okay? We'll go into more of that. The paper is due by the last day of class before final exams start, okay? The last day of class, the last Monday or Wednesday of the regular class, not counting finals week, okay? But I don't want you to wait till then to turn it in. I highly recommend you work on it as much as possible early in the term, and here's why. Believe it or not, you have more time now than you'll ever have later in the term. I mean, you have 10 weeks now, you're not going to have but 9 weeks next week, you know. So there's that. But also, how many of you already have a test due, a paper due? No. You got a lot of free time right now, believe it or not. And guess what? At the end of the term, you probably won't, okay? So please get started on it early. While you have time, get as much done as you can. Now, like I said, I've been teaching here around 19, 20 years, something like that. I didn't start assigning papers until probably year 5 or so. So at least for 15 years, I've been assigning every class I've taught. And back then, we were actually on the quarter system, so it was 4 quarters a year. Usually we had at least 4 courses a quarter. Now we're on semesters, and we have 5 or 6. This summer I have 6 classes. Every class, every term, never missed a summer either, fall, spring, summer, every year. And usually classes are a little bit larger than this. This is summer, and this is calculus too. But the typically, you know, I guess average 15 to 20 students per class. That many classes, that many years, I've seen a lot of papers. And here's the general trend. The papers that come in early in the term are usually my best papers. And the papers that come in the last day that they're due, I usually have some of my worst papers. And why? Because they put it off to the end, they didn't even proof it, didn't even spell check or anything else. Now, I've had some real dogs at the beginning. I've had some great papers at the end, but the general trend is downhill. So please, I suggest get started early. And how many times I've heard this at the end of the term. Oh, I'll never do this again. Put it off writing until the end, you know. I hear it every term. Not from the same people sometimes, but yeah, I hear it every time. Okay. So please, you will lose points if the paper isn't submitted at the last day of class. I will accept it during finals week, but you'll lose points. If you submit a paper in the month, now this is where the changes will come in. In the month of May, and you don't have many pieces left,
I'll give you 3 bonus points, not 4. This is for the 3 bonus points. If you turn it in June, you get 2 bonus points. You turn it in July, you'll get 1 bonus point. And if you turn it in they only got a week in August, you just get your score. Okay? If you turn it in after the last day of class, you lose points. Okay? So these are sticks. This is a carrot. Please turn them in as early as possible. Now, here's one thing I require that not many other people do. When you submit your paper, please attach a single page from one of your sources. If you have 3 sources, pick a source. I don't care which one. And print me off a single page from that source. Or if you got a book from the library, a magazine from the library, a journal from the library, or something like that, take it over to the copier and copy me a single page. I don't need the whole article, a single page from the source, and turn it in with the thing. If you don't have that, you're going to lose points too. So please attach a single page from one of your sources to the page. Just 1 page. Okay. Any questions? Okay. Get your topic. Start looking at it. You got a big weekend coming up. Use it. Yeah.
So you want a works cited page?
Yeah. Whatever your format calls for. If they call it works cited, if they call it bibliography, whatever they call it. Yeah. I want your sources. Yeah, for sure. Most formats have certain names. That's why I didn't put the name in here. So whatever your format calls for, use that. Yeah. Perfect. Good question. Any others? As soon as I get these changes made, I'll put this on Blackboard. So try to figure out how to get the Blackboard. All right. Any questions on the research paper? Okay. Now the next thing I'm going to do is, this is not this summer. This was last summer, but I just wanted to show you what the locator card looks like. And I'll sort of fill in the gaps here. Most of the information there is correct, except it should be summer of 2017. And then I will get as much of this on here as possible. Last summer I also had math, calculus 1, this time frame, but because I had so many other classes, another instructor needed it, so I let her teach that class. So that's where I had office hours in. Not so lucky this time, so now I have this class starting at, usually here by 7:45. This class starts at 8 on Monday and Wednesday. So Math 125, and it goes until 10:40. Okay, so at 10:45 I'll have office hours again until 11. Okay, so I have 15 minutes of office hours, and then my 126 starts then, and then my last time I had Physics 214. Now I have Physics 202 at 2, and then followed by the lab, then physics. It was last time 201, now it's 202 at 5 o'clock, and it goes, and actually the labs are a little bit longer, so it's going till 9. Okay, so that's my Mondays and Wednesdays, 2 20-minute breaks, and that's all I've got. Okay? Why did that not go any further? Okay, yeah. Okay. Tuesdays and Thursdays, now I have my Math 238. It's a small class, but it's made because we had a student who needed it to graduate. So that's 8 o'clock. Okay. My 237 did not make this summer, so that's when my office hours are. And then I did have starting at 12, a physical science class, and it goes to 3:30. Last summer I didn't have anything in the afternoon, which is really nice. I forgot last summer was that good. So now I have physical science on Tuesday and Thursday, and typically no classes on Friday. I'll get this corrected, and this will also be on Blackboard. All right, any questions on that? It's wrong, but you get the general idea of how to read it. All right, there's one more thing I need to cover before we start in the math. Sorry about this, it's taking so much, but we don't have any other days like this. And that's safety. It's something we need to cover at the beginning of every term, so everybody gets to hear it. Recording on Screencast-O-Matic, so even people who aren't here will be able to pick it up and listen to it if you want to. There are 3
areas of safety we need to think about. Can anyone think about what they might be, or at least one of them? Fire. Okay, very good. What if something happens in the building that is dangerous? It could be fire, it could be a chemical spill somewhere in the building, it could be anything such as that. What do you do in case of fire? Or even if you hear the fire alarm. Well, I sort of gave something away. Let's start with the first scenario. First scenario, we are here in this classroom having class and smoke starts coming out of the vent here. So we're the first people in the building to realize there's a problem. What do we do in that case? Say again? Pull a fire alarm. Fantastic. Therefore, the next question is, where is the closest fire alarm? Okay, that's why we're doing this. Now, if you haven't noticed it yet, we're in the old part of the building. And everything you see illustrated here is the old part of the building. This second floor part here, all old part. Okay? The building was built before fire alarms were required. So nowhere on the hall, that way, this way, anywhere on this whole part of the building, will you find the fire alarm. So where's the closest one? Go out the door here, take a left, go down that half flight of stairs, go across this corridor into that wing here. I said it's actually first floor. That's the newest part of the building. In that hallway there's a fire alarm right here and the fire alarm right here. So, and that hallway, just look for the closest one. That's where you go. So one, or possibly, I sort of like to do a buddy system. Two people go out to do the alarm. So I like that idea. So that's certainly what to do. Any other things we need to do right away? Say again? Okay, yeah. And we will get there. And in every case, we're going to do that. Okay, so I'm going to come back to that. Another thing to do, I don't know if any of you have this or not. Now, I don't usually bring the cell phone with me. I've got mine down in my office. I don't like it going off in class, even if I have it on silent. I don't like having it, so I leave it down in my office. I bet you all have your cell phones. Not a bad idea for you to have Washington State Police in your cell phone as a quick call number. Okay? So if you don't know the number, check at the front desk and they'll give you the number. I know what I dial here, but I don't know what number you dial off the cell phone. Okay? So that's not a bad thing either. If we're the first people to hear, certainly we're going to pull the alarm, but the other thing is contact police. Now, if you don't have that, 911. Get the word out. The alarm is going to get it to those people too, but the more information, the better. Okay? So if you don't have campus police on your cell phone, dial 911. Okay? Because we're the first to hear about it. Now, let's do another scenario. What if the desk just bursts into flame? Not likely to happen, but the fire actually starts in here. What's a good thing for us to do then? Everything you just said, pull an alarm, dial 911, call campus police. What's another thing we probably need to do? Say again? Get out of the room, but do we want the room to burn? Oh, fire extinguisher. Where's the closest fire extinguisher? Anyone know? Now, this old part of the building, they have, they can put fire extinguishers within 5 feet of where I'm standing right there. There it is. Right there on the wall, close to fire extinguisher. So someone else run out there and get the fire extinguisher. I'll handle it as long as I'm able, and I will start doing all I can while the rest of me. Now we finally get to that nearest exit. Where do we go if there is a fire? Okay? The closest exit is go out of this door, take a left, go down the half flight of stairs, immediately at the bottom, go down a full flight of stairs, and head away from the building. Now this shows here, this is not a great picture, but it shows here, here's where our classroom is, here's where we go out of the building, head across this grassy area, and go down to the parking lot that's right down there. Okay? That's where we go for if there really were a fire. Now, how do we go? We go quickly, but not running. We do carefully.
We don't want anyone falling down the stairs, and we not only have fire, we have broken bones, okay? We don't want broken bones, okay? So you go carefully, you go as a group, go down and out and into the parking lot over there. And stay together, okay? Because, a couple reasons. If I'm in here trying to put out the fire, or, and here's another scenario, all of you look pretty healthy, okay? But if one of you have a skiing accident and turn an ankle, break a leg, something like that, and you're on crutches or something, I'm going to be helping you get down those flights of stairs and get out of here, okay? If you happen to be in a wheelchair, this old building, the only handicap stairwell that's accessible from us here is going down this long hallway here, taking a left, going down that stairwell there has a lift. Okay? Now, if there were a major fire in the building, then the odds are power's going to go out pretty soon. Don't you reckon? A fire could burn, melt things. If the power goes out, that lift is no longer any good until it's electrically powered. So then I might ask one or two of you fairly healthy, strong people, in the Navy we call them able-bodied seamen, okay, to help me get that person in the wheelchair safely down the closest stairs if the power is going out, okay? But whichever, I'm going to be with that person. So that's why y'all get to where you need to be unless someone's helping me, whatever. And you stay together until all of us get back together. At that point, I'm also going to carry my roll book. I don't have it in here now, but I will. And I'll call roll. Because guess what? If we can't account for everybody there, the assumption is they're still in the building. So then some fire, either myself or some fire professional is going to go in scouring the building for you, risking his or her life or health, trying to find you because you wandered off somewhere. That's why you stay together in a group until I've met with you, we're all back together, I call roll, I report to the people that need to know this, and then they'll let us know what to do from there. If they say, look, folks, not going to have any more class today, then they'll dismiss you. Or, look, it looks like this has been well contained. As soon as we get it aired out, we're going back to the building. Or, we have all these other buildings, we'll assign classes to different buildings. You hang around until we know what's going to happen. Okay? They'll let us know. Now, if there is a drill, now, I hate it when they do this, but I understand what they're doing. If there is a drill, sometimes they have us meet at one place. The last time they had a drill, they actually had everybody go out the same door. I said, wrong answer. You go out the door you're supposed to, then you go around to meet where you practice good behavior. You don't practice bad behavior, okay? Practice where you're supposed to go. So I was the only person, I think, who took my class out here, and then I said, that's where we would go, but we're meeting in the parking lot back here, so let's go this way. And we went that way and actually picked up a kid coming out of the library on crutches so I could walk with him and make sure he didn't go too fast and fall down the steps that he had to climb up from the library. So, and let my class stay together. But most of the time we'll do that. If it's just a drill and they tell us we're going to meet in the back parking lot, you go out the correct door and then you go around to the back parking lot. Okay. Any questions about fire or chemical spill? So that's one safety issue. Excellent. Okay? Another. What would be another safety issue? Say again? Yes, weather emergency. Something outside the building that is, mostly tornado weather type things. Severe thunderstorm. If you hear that alarm go off, where do we go? Yeah, you go down and in, not down and out. Okay, down and out if it's inside the building, down and in if it's something from outside the building. So again, we go out the door here, take a left, go down the half flight of stairs, take another left, go down to the first floor, but don't go out of the building, go into the building. Now the first floor is set up just like this one is, and really
the safest place to be in a weather emergency where there may be building damage is in an interior room with lots of corners. Really, the closest, because this is where the strength is. The strength is in right angles. That's why they call them right angles. They're good angles. You know, that's where the strength is. So if you can get in a corner, you're okay. Okay, that's your best. Actually, the restrooms are right in there on the first floor. That's the best. Sometimes not the most pleasant place to be, a couple of hours, but you know, they are pretty safe because they're small, interior, and lots of corners. Now, they're either too crowded or, now here's the other thing. If there is a tornado or a major storm and we lose power, there's no emergency lighting in the restroom, so it's sort of dark. You're there in the dark, so you might not want to stay in there. Okay. The next best would be the hallway. On the first floor down, that's the lowest part of this building, by the way, that part I'm describing here, and anywhere along the hallway. Now, what you don't have is many corners there, but you're interior, you're away from windows. You don't go to any spaces that are on the exterior, okay? On that hallway, there's not too many until you get into the library. But the next best, after the restrooms, before even the hallway, where this corridor is actually the dean's office on the first floor. And if she is there, or the associate dean is there, or Dr. Briggs sometimes uses that office in the summertime, if someone's in there and will let you come in, it's a really safe room. Small room, lots of corners. Not that many people can get in. But again, there's no emergency lighting if we lose power, so you may not want to stay there. But at least it's a little more comfortable in the restrooms, okay? Now, next to their office, there is a big classroom there. It's a math classroom, math lab. And that's not bad. It's a big open space, so you don't want to be at the center of the room, but along a wall, near a corner is great. Along a wall, it's interior. Pretty secure and safe there. Next to that, you go through the glass doors in the hallway, you're into the library. Immediately to your right in the library is a computer lab, which again is smaller than the classroom, and it's interior, lots of corners, so that's not a bad place to be. Okay? Right next to that is what I call the reference room in the library. It's where the atlases and those kinds of things. It's stuff you don't usually check out, but you just use. And that's a pretty good space. It's a little bit bigger than the computer room, but it's still got some corners. The trouble is it's got bookshelves. And if there's a major thing, they could topple off on you. So I wouldn't get real close to them unless it feels like it's pretty safe. So that I wouldn't go any further into the library because then you get near an external room. Why don't you want to be in an external room? Windows, exactly. If there is a major tornado or thunderstorm, straight line winds, whatever, the limbs of that tree could be coming right in the windows. Glass, tree, lots of things damage you there. Don't go interior. Don't go exterior, go interior. All right, and again, we stay together in a group because I'll call roll. If we're missing anyone, someone has to go up and start looking for you, risking their life and them, to do so. So stay together until we know everybody's accounted for, and then if you got friends from other classes, you want to go to the restroom or the dean's office or somewhere there, we will do that. Or you can do that, but as long as we know where you are. And again, if there's someone that needs assistance, I'm going to be the last one down the stairs with you. Okay, so someone has to take the lead. I'll be with the last person, making sure everybody gets where they need to go. Okay, that's it for fire or internal emergency. Weather or external emergency. Is there any other type of safety that we have to keep in mind? Yes. Hate that we have to do this. We never used to even think about it in active shooter. But it's happened on at least one community college campus, not in Alabama, somewhere, I don't even know where, Ohio or Minnesota or somewhere. But it could happen. What do we do? Now guess what? I'm hard of hearing. You probably are going to hear it before I will. Okay? If you hear something that could be gunfire, let me know. What do we do? You tell me. What do we do? Number one,
I'm going to lock this door. Now, the only way I can lock the door, there's no buttons here or anything else to lock it. I have to go out in the hallway, pull out my trusty little key, and lock it from the outside, and come in and pull it too. Okay? So I lock this door. I have to do that. Now, some of you want to do this, you can. What would you say about this door? Lock it? No, the only way this door locks, there is a button on this side, but it locks from inside. This is so people inside the office can get out, but they can lock people in. That's not what we want to do, because the active shooter can come in this way. So it's not this one. How about this door? Well, this door doesn't have a button, it has a deadbolt. I don't have a key for that. So this is no good. However, this door does have a button here. When you press it, it locks from the outside. So I close the door, they can't get in. Okay? Whether that door is locked or not, I would go over and close that door, walk in the hallway. Sometimes it's locked, sometimes it's not. But definitely lock that door. Close this door. Why? There's a glass in that door. He can see into our room. Let's close this thing. I say he because, as far as I know, all active shooters so far have been men. There's that other wife team. I guess she was a woman. There have been suicide bombers have been women, certainly, but most of the active shooters, unfortunately, have been men. So we've locked this door. Not this one with that, but the third door we've locked. Okay, the one from that classroom. Then what do we do? Yes, you're very good. Get back here in this corner. We don't want him to see us from here. We turn off the lights. We don't want him to see anybody when he looks in here. We want it to look like an empty classroom. Nobody's here. Turn off the projector so he thinks nobody's here. The door's locked. He goes on. Okay? We stay very quiet back here in this corner until we hear the all clear. Okay? Got to sort of think of these things ahead of time. I hate that you have to do it, but it's happened too frequently. Any questions on any of the safety issues? I'm so glad we're through with those. Okay. Let's start with calculus. You need a little break before we start, or are you okay? All right. I take silence to be consent. If you need a break, let me know. We can take a short break. I know this is a long class. Okay. We go till 10:40, right? I have to get my times right for summer. This is so weird. Okay. Long class. Okay. So let's get started with this. Here we go. And we'll get started from the current slide. All right. Now, I don't know if you picked up on it, but I really already gave you an assignment, didn't I? Look at chapter 1, see if there's anything there that is foreign to you. You remember vaguely doing something like that, but you don't remember how you did it. Go over that. If you have any questions, bring those next Wednesday, and we'll try to deal with those first. Okay? But after chapter 1, where we're going to actually start today, is chapter 2. And I noticed nobody has a book in here with them but me, so I'll go over as much of this as I can, as completely as possible. Now, this is the figure that's in your book, if and when you get your book. And I don't know, this one's not bad, except I bet you some of you probably can't read what's here, can you? You might be able to or may not. So what I usually do, and I mean, they'll be far worse than this, but what I do, this package gives me the option of zooming in, and I can get this, blow it up a little bit. I say blow it up right after we talked about active shooters. That's probably not good. Makes it a little easier to read. It's called a strange attractor. It represents limit behavior that appeared in the first weather model studied by meteorologist E. Lorentz. He's not really a mathematician, but his name's mentioned
If you want to do your paper on how we use calculus to do this, that would be fine. To me, it's a lot better. But if that's what you're interested in, go for it. To me, that says almost nothing. I mean, that doesn't show me much at all what they're talking about, except it represents limit behavior. They don't even tell you how it represents limit behavior, but it's the figure. They like to do these little things at the beginning. I found them fairly useless. But calculus is usually divided into two branches. Anyone name them for me? I've mentioned both of them already. No, algebra is leading up to it. Calculus is differential calculus, or derivatives, and integral calculus. Now we'll touch on integral calculus right at the end. That's chapter 5. Most of what we're going to do in this course is differential calculus, derivatives. Okay? Now, so that's what differential and integral. And part of that is for historical reasons, because that's how it was developed. They are connected, but they're indirectly connected, you might say. The subject grew out of efforts in the 17th century, that's the 1600s, to solve two important geometric problems. The first of these were finding slopes of tangent lines. Now, anyone can find the slope of a secant line. You have 1 point here on the curve and 1 point here on the curve. You know how to find the slope between 2 points, right? If this is x1, y1, that's x2, y2. How do you find the slope? Say again? Okay, that gives you an equation, but just to get the slope, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Rise over run, right? That's how you find the slope between 2 points on any curve. But what if you want the slope at a single point? That would then be a secant line, a tangent line. The other is a secant line. You have 2 points, you can do a slope. What do you do if you have a secant line, a tangent line that only touches at 1 point? How do you find the slope there? That's where differential calculus came into play. Isaac Newton knew he needed to do that, to do the math that he was envisioning to do, so he did it. So that is differential calculus. The second is, what if you have a curve? We always have curves. What if you want to find the area under the curve? That's integral calculus. We'll get to that at the very end of the course. Okay, so we're going to focus more on differential calculus to begin with. Now, it says here, however, calculus is a broad subject with no clear boundaries, so it includes topics such as infinite series. That's a Cal 2 or Cal 3. I can't remember now, but it's not in this course. You'll hit that in either the next or the following course. And other things. I'm trying not to do all this. But a lot of calculus, especially both differential and integral, depends on the concept of limits. Okay? And you almost, whether you realize it or not, have almost described the first limit we're going to deal with. So 2.1 is talked about limits, rates of change, and tangent lines. Okay? So, limits, I don't know the best place to say this. Again, look at that tiny little print, and what a lousy slide. If you were doing a PowerPoint presentation, you'd flunk with that slide, wouldn't you? So I always try to blow it up too. I hit the wrong key. Okay. We're going to get to this in a second. But a limit, what if you have a function, f of x, some curve there, f of x, okay? And let's imagine it this way. You have this curve. Are any of you into diseases and that kind of stuff? That's your area of interest? My wife's an epidemiologist, so I'm really familiar with diseases and stuff. Typically, with a
if you have an outbreak of a flu or something like this, at the very beginning, typically you have low number of people with the disease. Not very many people have it, they haven't exposed it to the other. So it starts off slowly, but at some point it rapidly increases. Ebola, remember that? And actually in Congo right now, I believe they're having an Ebola outbreak. I haven't heard recently how they're containing it. It's a scary thing. But at some point, it levels off. Why? Because almost all the population has been exposed, so you don't have any new cases, but everybody's been exposed. So you have a limit down here, you have a limit up here. In between here, there's no limits at all. So what if a function was doing something like that? There are many other things. Let's say you're using cruise control in your car. You all ever done that? Okay. If you had to slow down or something and then you hit it to reset, and then it levels off. So you'll see your RPMs go shoot up and then they usually level off. So they overexceed and then they reach some level and then they approach some limit as you go. Yeah, unless you change elevations or something like that. So that's basically what we mean by limit. If a function is doing a variety of things, but ultimately is zooming in on some particular value, that would be its limit. Now, some of the examples they give: rate of change of number of infected individuals with respect to time. That's a rate of change, okay? Well, I've mentioned that one. Rates of change becomes critical whenever we study relationship between two changing quantities. In physics, we talk about displacement. You start here, you wind up there. You displace from here to there. That's the length. It took you a certain amount of time to get from here to there, unless you're on Star Trek and beam me up, Scotty. Even then, it takes a certain amount of time. Okay? So, what we talk about is what's the change of displacement per change of time. Guess what that is? Distance divided by time is velocity. Distance divided by time, that would give you a velocity. That's a change, a rate of change. Anytime you see rate, that means two things are changes. Usually it's time, but it doesn't have to be. Drive real sporadically in your car, speeding up, slowing down, gunning it and stuff like this, your miles per gallon are going to go down. Any of you have those fancy cars that show you your gas mileage as you're going? And I don't either. My father-in-law does. But I enjoy watching it when he's driving. And when you start off in cities, starting a lot, your gas mileage is really lousy. But then once you get on the road, you see it start reaching sort of a equilibrium type thing. You're reaching the limit. The rate of change is becoming constant. At first, it was anything but constant. Okay, miles per gallon, miles per hour. You measure the flow out of the vent in cubic feet per minute. All those are rates of changes. The rate of change of consumer price index with respect to time. What was it? I heard the GDP projected is increasing now. Finally, we had a really slow quarter the first quarter. So anytime you're talking about something changing with respect to time, with respect to distance, with respect to some other quantity, that's a rate of change. Okay? The rate of change of atmospheric temperature with respect to altitude. You know what happens as you go up. Some of you have traveled in an airplane, right? Have you been on a transatlantic flight and noticed when they give the temperatures out there? Really cold. Okay, when you're way up there, very cold. So you have change of temperature with respect to altitude. A rate of change. Okay? Barometric pressure. As you go up a mountain, the pressure is decreasing. Why? You have less atmosphere weighing down on you. Down here we have 1 atmosphere of pressure. Up a high mountain, you have maybe 3/4 of an atmosphere of pressure or something like that. So atmospheric pressure changes with altitude. Anytime you have change of two quantities, then that's going to present a rate of change. Change of position for change of time, that's called the velocity. Okay? That's one example of this. So, what if we name our quantities x and y? Boy, this gets to be very algebra, doesn't it? Yeah, x and y. Change of x for change of y. Well, we usually like to say x is the independent variable on the horizontal axis, y the dependent variable on the vertical axis. Y'all had this in pre-calculus, right? Well, how does y change with change of x? As you're increasing x here, what is your y doing? Y is changing as x changes. Okay? So that's a rate of change of y as x is changing. It doesn't have to be time. Sometimes the horizontal axis is time, and then it would be rate of change with respect to time. Okay. When we're talking about position and time, now your position would be the vertical axis, and time would be the horizontal axis. So it doesn't have to be x and y. Okay? Well, this could actually be x. Okay? Then the velocity is change of time, distance for change of time. How do we measure velocity? Give me some units. In your car, how do you measure velocity? Speed. Miles per hour. Miles over time. Change of distance over change of time. Feet per second. Cubic feet per second. You know, miles per gallon. Miles per gallon. Your independent variable is usually on the bottom, dependent on top. Change of y for change of x. Rise over run. How we did the slope before. That's how we typically do it, is the dependent, change of dependent over change of independent. Okay? So this would be one definition for velocity. I would do it the other way. I'd say velocity is change of position over change of time. But if you're looking for position, let's say you're driving from here to Tuscaloosa. What is that, about 45 miles away, approximately? I don't know. Anyone know? About right? Okay. Say it's going to take you 30 minutes to get there. Okay. Let's say you're driving 70 miles an hour. How far are you going to go in 30 minutes? 35 miles, because miles per hour, 30 minutes, half an hour, so half of 70 would be 35 miles. You're changing position. You're not quite in Tuscaloosa yet. You know, you're probably just past Vance, right? Somewhere there. So that's how, I mean, these formulas are really nice, and you can rearrange them any way you want to. Not any way, but velocity is equal to change of position over change of time, or change of time is change of position over velocity. Manipulate those lots of ways. Usually we keep the changes together. Now, what I just gave you, though, if I said you're driving 70 miles per hour, sure, if you're on the expressway and you got it on cruise control, that's a pretty good guess. But if you're getting out of the parking lot to get to the expressway, are you going to drive 70 miles an hour? Not without a ticket, right? Okay, yeah. Not going to be good to go 70 miles per hour from the parking lot to the expressway. So that the best you can do would be an average velocity then. On average, how fast are you driving? Because you're changing your velocity constantly. Well, that was the problem Newton had. Anyone can deal with average velocity. What if you needed no instantaneous velocity? Okay? In other words, what is velocity at a single instant? Not between 2 points, at a single instant. That's where a derivative comes into play. Okay? That's that slope of the tangent line. Okay. This then is sort of representing that type of a thing. If this is your path, say you're at a racetrack, a circular racetrack, maybe don't they have these for motorcycles and stuff like this, you know, or speed skating in the Olympics, or some of those things are on a circular track. A line that's tangent to this curve touches at one and only one point, and none of these other points doesn't touch. Now, this is a closed curve. Here's an open curve. There would be a tangent line. Up here could be a tangent line. Down here could be a tangent line. Over here, a tangent line. Tangent lines could be anywhere there. Is that a tangent line? No, it's touching at only one point, but it's not in the direction of your change. That's perpendicular to the change. So what we mean by a tangent line, wherever your motion is here, if you have motion, then the tangent line must be in the direction of the motion at that point, at this point. Whichever way it's going here, the tangent line is in that direction at that point. Here, this one is not in the direction of motion here. Okay. So just because it crosses at only one point doesn't make it a tangent line. It must be touching at that point, but not crossing at that point. That would be the other way to describe it. To me, the way they're presenting this is a little wacko, but you know, I'm trying to use the book since you have to buy it anyway. All right, guess who this is? Good old Sir Isaac. Pretty sure. Yeah. This is probably one of the better looking statues. I usually look like a much grumpier guy than that. Where is this one? At Cambridge University, which is, by the way, where he... Yeah, this is a different picture than the one that's in my book. So I don't know if this one... Yeah, it must be the same. The printing's on the back. The photographer got down here and took it. Sort of strange here. But anyway, he, with a prism and a silent face, the marble index, I don't know. Again, they like to do. Certainly he would be a paper topic. Now, I don't want all of you to do Isaac Newton. In fact, the first person who turns in his sheet of paper that has Isaac Newton, he's the one, he or she's the one that's got Isaac Newton. So I don't want everybody to do Isaac Newton. So if any of you want to, he's certainly a potential topic, but you know, he's not the only one possible. But he went to Cambridge University. I don't want to give too much away, because I want you to do your own research. This is not going to sound right. He was a poor student. That doesn't mean he wasn't bright. He was a poor student. He had to work, literally, his way through Cambridge. He did so by, I guess, doing things like ironing the rich kids' clothes, you know, and cleaning up after them and doing stuff like that. He was poor in that sense, and he was probably the greatest mind that Cambridge University has ever had. He literally had to work his way through college. But he also worked his way past every professor there. I mean, the mathematicians, they taught him what they knew, and soon he was past them. So when he graduated, the guy who had been the chair of mathematics said, look, let him be chair. He's much better at this than I am. Incredible, incredible mind. Not a very likable character, I take it, but an incredible, incredible mind. There's a little historical perspective here. They do a quote by Galileo, who would also probably be a legitimate paper topic. He didn't do as much with math as he did in physics. Isaac Newton did both, big time. But guess what? This historical perspective cannot be the source for your paper. It can give you ideas. You can go look it up somewhere else. Okay. They don't have these frequently, but they do have them periodically. All right, so let's look at then what we mean by velocity. And I'm going to use both of the terms we talked about before. Average velocity. Now, a lot of times when you're talking about a curve, and mathematics uses curves a lot. Calculus is basically the mathematics of curvilinear motion, okay? So if you have a curve that you've got, if you have a straight line, it's real easy to measure distance, right? I mean, everything's fine. When you have a curve, then you either talk about average distance, average speed or something, or you talk about instantaneous.
Let's do instantaneous on the curve. Now, when you start talking about the length of a curve, that curve is not going in the x direction or the y direction. It's going along the curve. So that length that we talk about is often called the arc length. Y'all have this in trig, right? And didn't they usually use the symbol S for arc length? So that's what you're going to see pretty frequently in calculus. When you're talking about the distance along a curve, you're talking about the distance traveled would be your arc length over the time traveled that it took you there. So if you started at a point here and you're at S1 at time T1, and S can be measured, well, not really measured here, but yeah. And then you go here, and that's S2 at T2. What is the average change? Well, are y'all familiar with delta? Delta means, it's a Greek symbol. It's actually a capital delta. A little delta doesn't look anything like that. Not just a smaller one, but it's a totally different looking figure. A capital delta means difference. Difference in length over difference in time. Delta S over delta T. That's what delta stands for. So that would be S at T1, whatever your displacement is at T1, minus your displacement at T0, divided by the difference between T1 and T0. Think of this as your Y's, these are your X's. Change of Y over change of X, right? Okay? Well, now it's changing arc length or length at two different times here, divided by the time difference. Okay? That is your average velocity. And that would describe a secant line. They're not actually going to do that here. But we mentioned Galileo before. What's he famous for? If you ask Joe Blow on the street what Isaac Newton was famous for, the odds are you're going to get sitting under the apple tree and the apple fell on his head or something like that, right? Isn't that what everybody thinks of with Isaac Newton? Well, that just describes supposedly the thing he experienced when he started thinking about what made the apple fall. You know, he thought of things like this. He developed the theory of gravity we didn't have. Believe it or not, we did not have a theory of gravity before Isaac Newton. He came up with that. He was the first, I think, reported to realize that white light splits into a spectrum. I mean, people may have seen that before, but he gave a theoretical basis for that. So he did the earliest work in optics, the earliest work in gravity. He developed gravity. He did principles of motion, his Principia. He developed a whole new mathematics, calculus. One guy broke the ice in so many fields where there hadn't even been, they didn't even realize the ice could be broken. Well, Galileo, if you ask him, he lived in the city in Italy named Pisa, not as in pizza pie, P-I-S-A. What's famous there? The Leaning Tower of Pisa. Now, whether he actually does this or not, this is what you'll always see, Galileo dropping the rock off the top. He had his assistant at the bottom, or maybe he was at the bottom as his assistant, I don't know, timing it to see how, which is pretty incredible because they didn't even have watches back then, you know. So he was having to do very careful experiments there, and he was the first to develop some of the things in motion that Isaac Newton had used to build his three laws of motion. So Galileo went before him, and he came up with this formula. The distance traveled of a falling object after t seconds, the distance is s. S of t is equal to 4.9 e squared, and this is in meters. It's important they have meters there. Does anyone know where the 4.9 comes from? Have you had physics before? Probably most of you haven't. It's what? Gravity. Okay, what about gravity? You're really close. Say again? 9.8. It's exactly half of 9.8, isn't it? 4.9. Actually, the formula is S of t is equal to 1/2 gt squared, where g is the acceleration due to gravity. Here on the surface of the Earth. It'd be different on the Moon or Venus or Mars or
He would live there anyway. Yeah, but on the surface of the Earth, 9.8. Half of that is 4.9. That formula he came up with, Galileo was the first one to develop that. Newton, of course, built on that. Okay. I don't know if Galileo named it an acceleration, but y'all were correct to say that's the acceleration due to gravity. What is acceleration anyway? Someone remind me what velocity is. It's been so long. What was velocity again? Change of distance over change of time. So what do you reckon acceleration might be? Change of velocity over a change of time. Exactly. When you accelerate in your car, you're going from a slow speed to a faster speed. So your speed's changing over a time interval. Hey, guess what most of physics is looking at changes, different changes. Well, take a time rate of change of that then. Time rate, okay, yeah. So that's what acceleration is. And later we'll know where the 1/2 came from. When you get into Cal 2, you'll find that's the integration constant. We're not there yet. We won't get there. Well, we might. I don't think we'll get there. We'll get there in Cal 2. Okay. But anyway, all these formulas. If you were to graph that, what is that graph going to look like? S of t is equal to 4.9 t squared. Just give me a general idea what the graph looks like. What general shape is that going to be? A parabola. Because anything that's quadratic is going to be a parabola. Okay? It's going to start and go up and go down. Okay? Well, it depends on where you start. No, this one would just be the parabola going down. Just downward. Because the initial velocity is 0, only way it can go is down. Okay? Because gravity is pulling it down. Okay? And sure enough, it's going to follow parabolic shape. Parabolic shape. Actually, you really should have a minus sign here, because if you count downward it's negative, then it's negative 9.8. So yeah, that shape would be like this. So it's going to be, I'm sorry, with a negative in front, it's down like that. So yeah, it'll be increasing the distance with respect to time, but not linearly by the square of the time. Okay. So let's do example 1. Ooh, we don't have much time left. Let's at least get started on example 1. Yuck. I wish they had a picture of this. They don't. No, I don't want to do that. Okay. And by the way, I use a tablet PC that has a pen on it, ionizing pen, so remember everything that's projected is scored is saved, so anything I write, this is the first I've written, all the sound has been there. But a hammer falls off a scaffolding at time t equals 0. So let's say you have a building here, and here you have the scaffolding around the building. This is a pretty ugly drawing, you'll see. And the hammer is up here somewhere, okay? And it falls off the scaffolding toward the ground down here, okay? Falls off the scaffolding at time t equals 0. That's where we start our clock right there. Estimate the instantaneous velocity at t equal 0.8 seconds. Estimate the instantaneous velocity at t equals 0.8 seconds. Well, guess what we're going to use? We're going to use this formula right here, because it's starting at t equals 0 up here and falling off. So we're going to use that formula there. So that would be S of t is equal to 4.9 t squared. That was the formula we were given, right? 1/2 at squared, by the way, or gt squared. Okay. So
if you're going to estimate at 0.8 seconds, how could you do that? Well, here is how they do it, okay? They will start at 0.8 and go to 0.81. So how much time is elapsed there? Second? 100. The decimals here, that's 8 tenths and 81 hundredths, right? So 80 hundredths and 81 hundredths, so 100. Okay? So what they would do, they plug in the 0.81 for S of T0, T1, and put 0.81 squared times that, and then do the 0.8 there. So what you do is S of 0.81 it'd be 4.9 times 0.81 squared. Okay, I wish they used a unit, and that would be our S1. Our S0 would be at 0.8, and that would be 4.9 times 0.8 squared. Okay, now I can do this one pretty much. No, I can't. I don't need a calculator on this. Anyone got a calculator today? Y'all, the way y'all think for period. Okay, but you can do this. Okay, 0.81 squared times 4.9, that would give you S1. 0.8 squared would be 0.64 times 4.9. I could do that, but I'm not going to. That would give you your S0. Then take the difference between those and the difference between those, divide them out, and they say your average velocity would be that. Well, that's an average velocity. Well, let's take a smaller time interval. Rather than 1/100th of a second, 5,000ths of a second. And do the same thing there, and you get this. And then do 1,000ths of a second, and you get this. 10,000ths of a second, and you get this, and then that. Anyone want to hazard a guess what the limit might be? 7.84. Sure looks like it's heading that way to me. With 100th of a second, which isn't very much, we're sort of far off from it. But when you get very, very, very close to that, you're reaching a limit there. Now, you want me to cheat? I'm going to show you how you actually do the derivative of that. Okay? Don't tell anyone I'm doing this for you. How you take S prime, that's the derivative, which by the way is ds dt. Now what does that look a lot like? Delta S over delta t. Delta if they're two separate points like they are here, but when you take a limit, that becomes a ds dt. You've seen that before? That's exactly what a derivative is. Where you go is that delta t is approaching 0. Well, here's how you take a derivative. I shouldn't be telling you this yet. 2 times 4.9, that would be 9.8 times t. Don't tell anyone I told you this. Okay? And let's plug in 9.8 times, we want it at 0.8 seconds, 0.8. Someone do, oh, you don't have a calculator. Oh, someone has a calculator. Good. 9.8 times 0.8. What do you get? 7.84. Good. You saw that was the limit. And sure enough, it was. Okay. I just cheated and gave you actually how you calculate it. I think that's a little easier than this, isn't it? Okay, I think maybe now I will hit this silly story I was going to tell. People have been doing limits way before Isaac Newton. In fact, I'm not even sure, I'm sure Isaac Newton used the concept of limits. But way, way, way before him, probably in antiquity, the greatest mathematician, you might say Isaac Newton was pretty close to modern, or semi-modern, classical, or whatever. Way back in antiquity, have y'all ever heard of Archimedes? Please, somebody has heard of Archimedes? Maybe? Have? Yes? Buoyancy? Archimedes principle? still we use today based on Archimedes. He was trying to figure out how you find the circumference of a circle. Now, we know a formula now. They didn't know it back then, way back. And what Archimedes did was, let's see, you could put a perfect equilateral triangle inside of a circle, can't you? And you can also put a perfect equilateral triangle outside the circle. I'm not drawing it very well. Something like that. This is called inscribed and circumscribed. Okay? And Archimedes, everybody knew how to take the area of a triangle. This triangle and that triangle. And believe it or not, they knew how to figure out how to get that to be exactly circumscribed. So he could do those two areas, take the average, and that would give him that. But let's see, let's take it one step better. Let's put a perfect square inside. That's even easier to write, but it's also easier to draw here, one inside and outside. And that's going to come even closer to doing. And you can certainly, everybody knows the area of a square here, square there. It's finding that circumscribed, inscribed and circumscribed. Well, let's do a pentagon inside and outside. That's going to be even closer. And then a hexagon, and then an octagon, and then keep going nanogon, and then you keep doing it, and you're really getting closer and closer to a circle the more size you get. And guess what? You can calculate the area of those things. I mean, even a 216 figure, as long as it's regular. I don't want to do it, but you can do it. You can calculate the areas inside and outside, average, and you're getting closer and closer to the area of that circle. Well, I'm sorry, I said the circumference. Areas. Archimedes had a name for that process. Now think about, I mean, triangles and squares, they're pretty easy. Pentagons is a lot harder to get the area. You have to split it into the triangles and do the area of each triangle inside and outside, and then hexagon, the same thing, and nanogon, octagon, and all those, and as you get more and more triangles that you have to do inside and outside. He was, whether he called it or not, he was reaching the limit. Guess what method he called that? The method of exhaustion. Okay? He got so tired of doing all those areas and then inside and outside and stuff, and finally he got to something. He said, that's close enough. I'm exhausted. I'm not going to do it anymore. That's as close as I'm going to get. Well, you do this long enough, and I saw you with your calculator doing all those calculations for every one of those. You get tired after a while. Guess what? You came up with how to take a derivative. You got the exact answer like that. That, to me, is almost the definition of mathematics, and certainly of calculus. I have this little theory. To be good at mathematics, I think you have to be just a little bit lazy. Because you're always trying to find the easiest way, the simplest way, the less trying way of solving the problem. Okay? And that's why we developed this. That's why Archimedes called it the method of exhaustion. Limits, we're going to start, and they're going to be sort of exhausting. Okay? By nature, they are. Okay? But they're going to lead us to how to do a derivative. That's where we're headed. So, we didn't get very far today. Sorry about that. We'll start next time with actually, I'll start a little bit before this. Figure here, it's almost the same thing we've seen before. But I'll start on this slide, but I'll start in the book right there. All right, sorry we didn't get as much done today as we should have, but from now on, it's pretty much all calculus, okay? Today was a lot of stuff about syllabus, but none of you had a book or read with you, and a few of you had calculators, so I guess we got about as far as we needed to. Let me just look to see if there's in your homework exercises. Yes, I think you can do number 1. No, we won't do. Try to do it number 1 at least. If you can get a book, if you can't, that's all right. You got till next Wednesday. Hopefully you'll get something by then. And try to do problem number 1, exercise at the end of the section. This is a very short section. I'll probably throw it out way too long. But anyway, we'll go from there. Any questions? Good deal.